Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And I try to bring you interesting commentary and true crime stories and things that are taking place throughout our country and our world. And I try not to have a whole lot of bells and whistles with thumbnails and copying and pasting news stories. I kind of want this channel to be a 1970s and 80s Walter Cronkite, kind of a Dan Rather 101, Ed Bradley kind of video channel. So I don't have a whole lot of bells and whistles. It's just me and you, and we discussing cases, getting to the meat and potatoes of it, talking about it, hitting the high points, me giving you my opinion, and then we're moving on. So it doesn't take all day, and I'm not occupying all of your time. And I like to get right into the story. So this one is coming to you straight out of Baltimore, where a young man made a horrible and fatal mistake. I think it was a rash moment. I'm not sure he premeditated this situation. I think it slightly got out of hand, and now he is in jail and facing murder charges. So here we go. 73-year-old woman stabbed to death in Bel-Air, Maryland, by a 24-year-old suspect that is in custody. 24-year-old suspect also accused of stabbing his ex-girlfriend, who is the victim's 17-year-old granddaughter. So he stabbed a grandmother and a granddaughter. Follow the story. Bel-Air police have a man in custody after a 73-year-old woman was stabbed to death and a teenager was assaulted on Thursday. Town police said officers were called around 2:50 p.m. to a home in the 700 block of Bedford Road in the Homestead Village neighborhood, where they found a woman who had been stabbed multiple times and her 17-year-old granddaughter who had been assaulted and suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Police said both victims were taken to the hospital. The stabbing victim, Miss Mary Catherine Bland, 73, the grandmother, later died. There was some type of argument which escalated, and it sounds like the victim tried to intervene, Miss Bland, the grandmother, and that's when Miss Bland, and that resulted in an assault, Bel-Air Police Chief Charles Moore said. So evidently, this gentleman comes over to the house to see wants to see the granddaughter, and I'm thinking that the grandmother does not want him in the house, and he's trying to get in there, and it starts an argument. So let me finish it up and let's see what you all think. Harford County Sheriff's deputies arrested Mr. Angelo Terrell Spencer, 24, outside his Abingdon home about an hour after the alleged attack. So Angelo Terrell Spencer, 24. Now the granddaughter is just 17 that he was dating. He ain't had no business dating her at that age gap. And he's bordering on, I don't know what the state laws are for getting in trouble for having a relationship with an underage young lady, but 24 and 17 is right on the cusp. I have to look at the statutes in Maryland to see. Authorities charged Spencer with first-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree assault, and first-degree R. We know that this was him inside the residence. He was identified, walked away from the residence, Chief Moore said. It was learned during a court hearing on Friday that Bland was stabbed 25 times, the grandmother. The court records indicate Spencer originally went to a nearby Home Depot and purchased a glass cutter and a pocket knife that he's accused of using to try to break into the back of the house before trying the front doorbell and walking and talking to Bland and pushing his way into the house. So evidently, as I was saying earlier, that he must have broke up with the granddaughter. The grandmother didn't want him speaking to the granddaughter. He goes over there anyway, and he's going to force his way into the house when they didn't want him in there. And I think he evidently went to Home Depot to get a cutter and try to go in through the back door. So he's breaking in and entering, and then he couldn't do that. So he decided to ring the doorbell. And then when the grandmother, Miss Bland, went there to talk to him, he forced his way in, and this is when all this commotion took place. So a court charging document obtained by 11 News reads, in part, Spencer pushed into the house. Mary Bland yelled. Spencer then stabbed Mary Bland in the shoulder. Spencer claims he panicked and then continued to stab Mary Bland multiple times. Spencer denied essaying the granddaughter, but stated that he did grab her around the neck during the attack. The judge denied bail, determining Spencer as a danger to the community. Charlotte Green, one of Spencer's former co-workers, attended Friday's court hearing in his support. She said, I just can't believe this is happening. I just can't. This is not him. Something had to make him snap. I'm getting ready to cry, Green said. He's so full of life, and he's too young for this to happen, and he's going to ruin his life if he's found guilty. Well, Miss Green, you might as well get ready, because there are so many indications and factors of his conscious decision to go over there, knock on the door, try to break in the door, the back door, and then assault and accost this 73-year-old grandmother and this 17-year-old granddaughter that I don't see. And with all the preponderance of evidence, the Home Depot video camera of him buying and purchasing those items, and then him subsequently committing this crime not less than 2 hours after leaving Home Depot, I don't see how he's getting out of this. Police said Spencer was previously in a relationship with the teenage daughter, which I said earlier, assault victim. He remains in custody at the Harford County Detention Center. Dina Bobel, a neighbor, told 11 News that Miss Bland and her husband have lived in the community for years. Kathy was a selfless nurse, selfless mom, and a selfless grandmother, Bobel said. So there's a few things in this story when I was reading it and prepping for it yesterday that made me want to talk about it. So we have several dynamics. We have young versus old, where you have a grandmother who is taking care of a granddaughter. So either that is the grandmother, that must be the grandmother's daughter or son's daughter, is her granddaughter. So where is that dynamic where we got three generations? We got a granddaughter, where's the daughter or son, and then the grandmother. And we're missing that intermediary piece. So the grandmother's taking care, 73 years old, taking care of a 17-year-old. That's a huge age gap. They grew up in completely different environments, pre-technology, pre-cable, pre-electric cars, pre-computers. I mean, just pre-everything. And you're seeing that dynamic a lot in today's time where grandmothers are having to take care of grandchildren due to unforeseen circumstances with their children. It could be incarceration, the opioid crisis, loss of job, death. But you are seeing a high dynamic of grandparents taking care of where kids are taking care of their parents. They've gotten the kids that are in their 50s and are doing okay, and then their parents are in their 70s, and unforeseen things happen, and sometimes the parents end up moving back in with their children and their grandchildren. Well, this dynamic was just the reverse. The granddaughter is supposedly living with the grandmother. They didn't say much. They mentioned at the end of the article that Miss Bland was married, but I don't know where her husband was or if he's still alive in this particular situation. Also, you got young and old, and that makes it very tough. Like I say, the 73-year-old grew up totally different than a 17-year-old. Life moves at a very fast pace in today's time that I don't think the average 70-year-old or 65-year-old, 75-year-old can be prepared for. These kids can get every bit of information at a push of a button. This computer technology, this cell phone, and this desktop computer has replaced all of us as parents. They can get any negative or positive information they want at a push of a button. So a 73-year-old did not. We had to open up books, whether you're 50 or 73, and ask questions to parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, to garner the information to prepare yourself for life. Now these kids don't even have to talk to a human being. It's straight speaking with technology. And I think that's a gap in our humanness and our humanity that is missing in our young people today. And they have a tendency, we had to use, anybody in their 50s, let alone up to 70, we had to utilize the five senses that God had given us to navigate our way through this wonderful, crazy world. Kids don't have to, they may utilize two of them, seeing and hearing. Using that phone and staying on that phone and listening to music and that kind of thing, but touching, feeling, raising their level of consciousness. Many of our kids today are walking around like zombies. They don't even have to pick a book up anymore. No, the library has become a ghost town or is extinct. And so technology has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. And you see this scenario where this 24-year-old is dating this 17-year-old. I don't like that age gap. I think there's a lot of development that needs to take place. That 24-year-old is dating a teenager. He's in his mid-20s and dating a high school student who's still learning and developing as a human being. And he's teetering on that border of that age of it being a possible criminal offense. I don't know the state laws as far as age requirements and appropriate age and legal age of consent and appropriateness without being accused of anything statutory. But a 24-year-old should be trying to find someone 22, 25, a college student, someone in his own age group. So there was a certain level of immaturity with this 24-year-old Mr. Spence to where he is even involved with a 17-year-old in and of itself. And for him to think that he would be able to just go over to the grandparents' home and just force his way into the house and talk and do whatever he wanted to do with those two young ladies there shows you a certain level of immaturity and bravado that has led him into the jail system and getting arrested. And the way this story lines up with him going over there and trying to break in makes me think that Mrs. Bland's, the grandfather, probably was either at work or is deceased. Because normally a young man, if he knows another man is there young or old, he's going to have a little reservation and hesitation to doing that, or he would have brought a gun. This whole thing with the stabbing of the grandmother makes me think that it was just the granddaughter and the grandmother that were at the residence. And the other qualifying factor you have here, so we got a 73-year-old grandmother, 24-year-old Angela Terrell Spencer, African American, and a 17-year-old granddaughter. But this is the other key factor that plays into this thing. The 73-year-old grandmother, who was Mrs. Bland, Kathy Bland, right? Mary Catherine Bland. She was Caucasian, white, and unfortunately, Angelo Terrell Spencer, 24, is a black guy. Young, so we got a dynamic of an older white woman, a grandmother, and a young, bravado-driven black man, 24, Angelo Terrell Spencer, who perpetrates this crime and kills his 73-year-old grandmother. He is in a ton and a shitload of trouble. This is not going to look good for the court. I don't know. They didn't show a picture of the 17-year-old granddaughter, whether she's mixed race or white or Caucasian, is not going to help Mr. Spencer whatsoever. He has definitely fulfilled the diabolical stereotypes of angry young black men and them being dangerous to our communities throughout our country, and we have to watch out for him. And he walked right into the footsteps of that stereotype and perpetrated this crime in this elderly white woman's house. So I don't know if Maryland has a death penalty or any of that kind of thing. I know Missouri, I'm right here in Missouri, they definitely do. And if you were in Texas or Alabama, and based on what I'm looking at in this case right now, he would definitely be eligible for the death penalty. Young black 24-year-old male goes into a 73-year-old white woman's house and perpetrates and stabs her 25 times, which is egregious and very, very aggressive. He would be highly eligible for the death penalty. But I don't know what the state laws are, state statutes are in Maryland. If he's getting first-degree murder, he is definitely looking at life in prison without parole, spending the rest of his life there. And then he had this essay charge with the 17-year-old granddaughter that he attacked her throughout this argument and event with the grandmother. So this guy's in a ton of hot water. And the last part I want to talk about that is very important is that we have to, so two things, that when these grandparents are raising their grandchildren in today's time, and I said that they are growing up in completely different eras, I've seen and I know personally that they have done this, and these grandparents are very nice, they're old, they're tired, and they're allowing that their grandchildren to kind of run the household and do kind of whatever they want, bringing their friends over and spending the night. And I've been a very huge negative proponent and a non-advocate when I've had friends of mine and relatives that I see that have this relationship with this big age gap in raising a granddaughter or younger relatives, that they should not have their friends, the young people's friends, staying over without vetting them. There's a lot going on out there in the community in these cities that is very negative and very demonic. And I truly believe from a spiritual standpoint, you have to be very careful what you bring into your house, what kind of energy. Just think about this. This 73-year-old Miss Catherine Bland and her husband, if he was still alive, they are retired. If the 17-year-old granddaughter is not living with the grandmother does not end up deceased and dead and murdered. Wouldn't happen, because Angelo Terrell Spencer would have never come over there. No reason. Mr. Spencer is there because he has a relationship with the 17-year-old granddaughter. And so Mary Catherine was allowing this 17-year-old to make adult decisions that have filtered down and spilled over into the grandmother, and bringing the wrong person in the house ended up in her death. I think we have to be very careful on the decisions we make on allowing our young people today to make decisions on who comes in and out of our homes. And I've seen it personally where a young daughter, older lady adopts a young daughter, or an older couple is taking care of grandkids, and they're teenagers, and they're letting all kind of people come in and out of their house that they normally wouldn't do as retired people, and very bad things can happen. These young people do not consciously, many of them do not consciously make rational decisions. They make split, unnecessary negative decisions. Our young people today have a very hard time understanding the difference between life and death and the fine line. And the definition of the word humanity is somewhere lost in their vocabulary today. And I think older people need to guide young people into the right direction of life, and older people should not be following young people. We have it all the way backwards. This woman would still be alive today if she did not have her granddaughter at the house that brought that negative energy of Angelo Spencer to the home. And so I think that's very important. And in the final gesture of it is uh, we have to make sure, and these young people make rash decisions and they don't think them through. So this happened at a split moment, whether he premeditated it or not. And I think this entire scenario, the grandmother, Miss Catherine, Mary Catherine Bland, trying to take care of her granddaughter, ended up being a situation where the wrong energy entered that home, and she ended up losing her life. The granddaughter is going to need therapy. This is a PTSD. This is a psychological situation that is going to be long terms of therapy. This could disrupt her life forever. And this gentleman just lost his freedom based on the decisions that he made in relationship to this young lady and the grandmother. It's very unfortunate. Tell me what you think. This is a 24-year-old suspect accused of stabbing his ex-girlfriend and her grandmother, and stabbing the grandmother 25 times and killing her. And this is in Bel-Air, Maryland. And the suspect is 24-year-old Angelo Terrell Spencer. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way.